Welcome to Be Now for Tuesday, November 1st. My name is Don McLeod, and as usual, I'm joined by Fazal Khan.
Hi, Don. Welcome, everybody. Last week, we didn't have a show because the previous week we had two shows. But last week, Don, we had a big election. Who won?
Yes, we did. And the thing is, I want to explain to somebody why we didn't cover the election. It was like my wife had told me that she had booked a holiday. And I said, okay, that's great. No problem. We're going down for 4 days. She said, no problem. You booked. Anyway, I find out that it was booked on the 24th and we came back on the 27th. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't really cancel the trip. So that's why we didn't have a show. But I did watch the election. I did follow the results. And we're going to go through that today. What we expected of council, how the council has changed. Obviously, you know by now who your councillor is, but we're going to go through the whole scenario of the election as it panned out.
Yeah, but before we do that, Don, normally I forget to talk about some housekeeping. So I'll show you a comment a user just posted, and it says from a Facebook user with just a silhouette. The reason that happens is that comment is coming from a Facebook group that we broadcast to. It's actually Karen because she's putting it there. So we're broadcasting on a couple Twitter channels, on YouTube, and a couple Facebook channels, and all the messages on Facebook and YouTube come to us. Twitter messages don't come to us, and so the views are all over the place. But if you're in our Brampton Now group, it's a private group, and that's why they don't release the information through this channel. She's hanging up and probably going to be joining from another channel. So that's the one thing. And then the other one is you can always watch the show on Twitter or Facebook, because we leave it on there, and it's also on a YouTube channel. So we do have plans done. You and I have been talking about how to improve the show, how to get more engagement, and now that all of the chaos of an election and of the previous term, the chaos that happened there is over, I think we'll have a lot more time and opportunity to kind of cover the substantial issues.
And the slot is still going to be 6:30 every Tuesday, so we're going to maintain that on a regular basis. Obviously, during the election, there was a whole bunch of things that sort of corresponded and conflicted with that. But going forward, we are going to maintain the Tuesday at 6:30 to 7 o'clock. So let's get right into it.
Okay, so on today's show, we're going to cover a whole bunch of stuff, and we're going to try to do it quickly so that you don't get too bored with us. The first one, we're going to bring back our As Seen on Social Media segment, and we're going to talk about fireworks because that topic was big last week. But as expected, it's dwindling because it happened last week. But every Diwali, we're going to see this happen again unless council takes some action. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about what are some of the council priorities, and I have my own opinion on that. And I've got a quick video to show you something in my neighborhood. And these are the small things I think council should be focusing on, at least in the short term. And the big one is the council roundup. Who won which seats, what to expect, maybe a little bit of backstory on a few of them that we're aware of. And then I know you're waiting for this one, Don. I call it the Cavalis Clown Show. Nick Cavalis was the campaign manager for Nikki Carr. And if you were paying attention on social media, he was wreaking all kind of havoc in the city. And
he was trying to wreak havoc.
Well, I think he did. It wasn't
to some degree, small degree.
And then the big one that I'm really concerned about is the media bias against our city, and we're going to talk about one of the so-called media and we'll show you the two headlines to give you an example of why it's so toxic in our city. Another comment from a Facebook user: let's avoid the infighting. I think we all agree with that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay, so.
All right, let's kick it off and let's get going.
Okay, so I'm going to show you guys a video, and then we'll talk about it. Here we go. So we can actually talk about it while it's going. So I posted this video on my social media, Don, and I said, just another night in Brampton.
Unfortunately, that is not Brampton. That looks like somewhere in the Middle East.
It's actually somewhere in Europe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think one of the small countries over there was celebrating their 80th or 90th independence.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I got called out on social media for kind of implying that's Brampton. A lot of people thought it was Brampton. How could you think that's Brampton? It wasn't that bad, but the reason I put it on there was to kind of just say it was bad because that was election night. I was coming home because I dropped into a few of the campaigns, and the next day my eyes were still burning. That's how bad it was.
Well, here's the thing. I left on the 24th early in the morning, but the 23rd, the night of the 23rd, they started around, I think it was around 11 o'clock. I could start to hear the fireworks, and I could hear at 4 in the morning they were still going off. Some were going off. So
I think last night somebody was doing fireworks in my neighborhood.
Hey?
Last night somebody was doing fireworks.
I know. Halloween night somebody was doing fireworks. So it seems it's not only Diwali, it seems to be a regular basis where people are getting fireworks. Now I know that this topic came up years ago at City Council. I know Councillor Paleshi was talking about banning fireworks in Brampton and selling them in Brampton. But the problem with that is you can go across the border to any municipality. You can order them online. How are you going to stop them from coming into? You can't. It's like, saying that there's no marijuana allowed in Brampton. Well, you can go to Mississauga or somewhere else. It's just, it's an idea that basically has no merit. You can't. There's no border crossings in Brampton.
Well, and there are already bylaws. You're not supposed to be able to do the long range fireworks, just the ones that I think goes 3 meters high. Nobody abides by that. And then because so many people are doing it, like, what are you supposed to randomly charge people? So I think there are some things, some suggestions. I think the mayor had a email thread going out.
Yeah.
Mike says we need to hire more bylaw officers for that one night, Mike. For that one night.
Yeah, you can't. It's like someone saying we need to hire more cops and put them on the corner because crime is increasing, or there's somebody. You can't do that. We can go into all sorts of different solutions, but the problem is basically you're going to have fireworks. So how to mitigate the circumstances, right? Bigger fines is a possible thing. $10,000 fine if something like that.
Make some
examples. I know that Patrick was saying that have a central one at Chinguacousy Park. There's fireworks at different times of the year in Brampton, right? I mean, Diwali is one. I mean, it's supposed to be a holiday, but the problem is, and there was another video that was circulating in regards. Peel Police had 2 political factions basically separated, and they were lighting off fireworks and screaming at each other. It's almost become a situation where it's a political arena rather than a celebration of lights and festivals the way it's supposed to be. So if you have Hindus and Punjabis on one side, it's old school or back home politics is sort of melding.
Hindus on one side, Sikhs on the other side.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's a political thing. So maybe more bylaws the answer, short term, part time. I don't know what it is, but I didn't see any police, and I know they say that's not their issue. It's a bylaw issue.
Yeah,
I don't know if our bylaw officers have flashing lights, because that alone in your neighborhood might make you stop, right?
Well, I mean, bylaw officers tried to do a lot of stuff during the COVID, and they couldn't do it. Remember that party with 200 people, and they didn't actually take any license plates or issue any tickets because they said, well, we don't have enough guys, right? So,
well, and remember during the COVID, people are having these large gatherings, and bylaw issue tickets. I've never heard what happened with these tickets.
No, of course not, because they're still going to court. So, I mean, it's something that's gonna be going forward. You're still going to have that. Fireworks goes off on a regular basis. July the 1st. I mean, you hear them all over the place, right? So it's an issue.
My eyes are watering, Don. I think it's my bad memories of last Monday.
Well, here's a quick thing. I was talking to a guy that I haven't talked to in a while. And I said, I haven't talked to you. And he said, well, I've been dealing with an issue. And I said, well, what's the issue? He said, on July the 1st, he said, there was a whole bunch of fireworks that were set off. And what happened was, one of the bursts went off at almost eye level. And he says, I wasn't close to it. He says, I was about 100 meters away, but it went in my eye. I'm now blind in my eye. So there's certain things that, people think these things are all fun and games, but, having an eye taken out, it's not fun either, right? So maybe there needs to be more communication about the dangers of using fireworks on a regular basis that people don't know. But going blind in one eye is not a good situation for just to seeing fireworks go off, right?
Yeah, but the bigger issue, Don, is gas-powered leaf blowers. But this is not the show for that. This is not the show for that.
Mike Dancy, what he says: if I was elected all problems would have been solved. Yeah, Mike ran in 7 and 8 against Pat Fortini. We'll get to you in a little bit because we want to mention you.
Yeah.
All right, so
okay. Let's talk about some of the council priorities, and this has happened in my neighborhood on the weekend. I was actually driving around, and let me show you what I'm talking about. So there's a you guys know this plaza if you've been watching the show. A drunk driver smashed into one of those concrete kind of signs that says Brampton in the plaza. And that was a year and a half ago. And that concrete thing has yet to be fixed. But in that same plaza, there's at the entrance, and I'll show you guys here. Okay, right here. Right. So this is the entrance of the plaza. You can see it's kind of a big open space for parking. So when you're driving, you don't actually see that curb there, and you can see that it's a big ditch, and there's the base of a pylon there. I don't know what happened to the pylon, but I guess somebody put a pylon before. So when you drive in there, if you don't know and you make a quick right, you're going over that curb and you're landing in that ditch. And that has happened to me. Luckily, I was driving my wife's SUV, and it was a couple of years ago, and I was able to drive right through it, and there was no damage to the vehicle. I'll show you guys what happened to somebody else. Here we go. Yeah, so a couple things in that video. One was that noise you were hearing in the background with the exhaust was not that car. That was another car driving by.
I realized that.
And there's an automated speed enforcement camera down the road, and I'm pretty sure it caught him because it actually caught me. I paid a $75 ticket recently. But, if that happened to me, I don't have 5 friends to call that is going to push me out of that ditch. I probably have to, I don't know who I would call. But you can see that's an ongoing issue. And I know, Don, we were talking about it. That's the plaza's responsibility. Yeah. But I don't know. How do you get a hold of the owner of a plaza?
Well, because it's owned by, could be Morguard, whatever. I mean, these plazas are owned by, that's not the city's responsibility. But what you could do is if you got your car damaged, you could actually go to your insurance company and put a claim in against the people who own the plaza, because there was a cone there for a reason, right? It's not really, there's no real signage to be aware of and this and that. I mean, I'm sure you could do something, but, going further, you're talking about small infrastructure damage across the city that is on city property. I agree with it. There's some stuff that has to be done. I think a lot of people, what they want is council priorities, want the council to work together to solve problems. That's got to be the first.
Yeah, like I should be able to, Facebook.
I destroyed my car.
I don't know, you went flying. I don't know how you destroyed it. Well, maybe, I guess you could. But, I would love to be able to just call my counselor. My counselor, that's not that's about 500 meters from where I live, but it's a different ward altogether, right? I don't know what would happen if I called 311, if they would just
They would just say probably if it's on plaza, that's almost like private property, right? So, and that's why some of these plazas that they actually charge for parking and so on and so forth. So, that's the plaza's responsibility.
All right. So our next segment, Don, is the council roundup. And let us show you the slide of what the council looks like now. So this is a high-level overview. Obviously, Patrick Brown is now mayor of the entire city. And we've got a bunch of new faces. I didn't actually count how many new faces. Can you count there, Don?
Yeah, we had 1, 2, 3, 4 new faces on the council.
Okay, so let's go through it quickly, ward by ward.
Yep.
And tell you what happened. So in wards 1 and 5, everybody's the same, no changes. One of the curious things here was, though, if like you and I are close friends with Councillor Vicente and Councillor Santos. They were both part of, Brampton Focus on the board, and they get criticized for that often, but we're a nonprofit. And there's no financial interest. This is all volunteer based, right, Don? And so one of the curious things there is those two councillors work very closely, more closely than anybody else, any ward pairs in the
Obviously,
city. And so you expect them to get fairly similar votes. But in this case, because of all, and I think we're going to talk about it later, because of all the attacks on Councillor Santos, because of her championing of the Brampton U and the negative media that attracted, she actually got 3,000 less votes than the Councillor Fasante.
Yeah, we'll talk about the negative politics in Brampton, basically, that you haven't seen in a little while, but it was initiated by our Nick and Marcel friends. But we'll get into that. But at the same time, Councillor Vicente and Rowena retained their seats, which is good because some of the people running against them, like.
We don't have to mention names. Don't mention names, Don.
No, I'm not mentioning names.
They lost, and they can run again, and Oh, anyways, let's not go. Wards 2 and 6. I called this one, Don.
Yeah, you did actually.
Yeah, and so I'm excited about. I guess we can't call her councillor yet. Councillor-elect.
Well, councillor-elect. I think on November 14th or something, sometime around there. That's when the new council is sworn in. So she's councillor-elect at this point in time. Yes.
Councillor Navjeet Kaur Brar.
Yeah, she beat out a lot of people. There was a whole bunch of people running against 2-6. There's, I'm happy to say, some of the trolls that basically we've encountered were running and they lost. So see you later.
Yep, I agree, Don. We don't have to mention their names either.
No, I'm not going to give them the distinction of actually mention their name, other than the fact that they're trolls. So, I'm glad that trolls lose because we're going to cover that about negative campaigning as well going forward.
Yeah, and Councillor Pelesci obviously has been there.
Yeah,
this is his third term now, I believe, right? Yeah. So he's probably the most senior councillor now. This is his third term. I think everybody else at most has been there 1 term,
2 terms, or 1 term. Pat Fortini has been there.
Oh yes, same amount of time.
And Martin Medeiros.
But it's actually good. I don't like to see a ward pair and switch entirely. Just because I think there's some mentorship that can happen there between the two. So, I think that'll happen here because Councillor Pelesci and Councillor-elect Brar, I think we're doing some campaigning together. So I think they like each other, which is good. Okay. And our favorite friend, Councillor Medeiros.
Martin, I can do anything Medeiros. He's got the God complex. Dennis Keenan, I'm happy Dennis got in. Basically, the outgoing councillor was Jeff Bowman. He tried to do a quick sort of switch at the last moment. He tried to throw his friend John Sanderson in there, and then he decided not to run, thinking that, I'm going to pull this last minute thing so nobody will run. Dennis Keenan decided to run, which is good on him. John Sanderson, an old retread and Elaine Moore ally. I'm happy to say that he lost. It's about time to hang it up, John. Dennis Keenan owns a business, several businesses as well. And to me, I mean, to have a businessman, an actual businessman on council is going to give you a different perspective, something that, all those running against him in 3-4 did not really have.
And as a small business owner, I think he can really help the small business in Brampton because he knows the challenges.
Well, even business development, and you have people in government that basically have never owned a business. So how are you going to retain and bring businesses to Brampton? It's helpful to have someone who actually has run a business.
Yeah, and I know you were just criticizing Councillor Medeiros, but when the new council is inaugurated, from our perspective, Don, I think it's a clean slate. We're starting from scratch. We're going to give everybody the benefit of the doubt that you're in it for the right reasons, that you are interested in residents, and you're going to make decisions based on what you think, not by colluding outside of council to vote in a certain way. And when it comes to electing probably our new CAO and IC, you should do your research as opposed to just go with whoever is put in front of you.
Well, I'm a little bit more jaded when it comes to certain people than you are, but I'm willing to listen at the first and see what happens over. What do they usually say? That you give when the president gets elected, it's the first 100 days. So let's give him first 100 days and beyond that.
Yeah, and I have high hopes. I'm not sure what happened last council.
You're more optimistic than I am.
If you look at the dynamics, 4 of the 6 councillors who were causing some of the trouble last term, who were all found guilty of breaking the municipal act, are now gone, right? So it doesn't make sense for these two other councillors,
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Like, it's a new dynamic, so we'll see. Like I said, the first 100 days are going to be interesting.
Okay, Councillor Ward 7 and 8, Pat is back.
Yep.
The voters have made their choice, and we respect that, right?
Yeah, Pat and Rod Power ran together, just like Rowan Santos and Paul Vicente ran together. I have no problem with people running together. Don't know much about Rod Power. I guess we'll find out very shortly. Like I said, in the first 100 days, when they take office, we'll see what kind of sensibilities or what kind of policies you can bring to the table. We'll see.
One of the issues in the composition of the council right now is we've lost representation of the Black community. And I'm going to blame MPP Charmaine Williams for that, because she could have easily assisted in this ward because it was her ward. But, if you go back to last council, she was supporting Elaine Moore as a replacement for her. And then during the municipal campaign, she was supporting her sister, and I think there were three candidates, Black candidates, running against each other. Obviously, they're going to split the vote. It made no sense. Councillor Charmaine Williams, as an MPP, could have easily provided some leadership there for the Black community and said, "Here's what how's going to happen." Right? I don't think any of that happened, and I'm not discounting Rod Power's effort to get elected, but I feel I'm going to say bad, but we need Black representation on council, right? We now have 2 women instead of 1, which is great, but we lost 1 Black councillor.
Yeah, well, I know that certain organizations and certain people in the Black community, they were trying to organize, but I'm sorry, but if you don't organize and you don't talk to people about who should be running and why they should be running, you're going to run into this. And as far as I'm concerned, you and I, we know that we got into a Twitter thing with Charmaine Williams' sister about why she was running and so on and so forth. Why is her sister, not why is she running, why is her sister stumping for her 2 days before the election, putting out robocalls about, there's a, this, that, and the next thing about the other candidate that's running with the same last name. It's none of your business. It's a municipal election. If you want to have that, that's fine, but you should be running on your own merit. I didn't see that.
It's interference by the provincial government, who should not be doing that, right?
Yeah, and it's like, so what? It's a last name. You have a lot of people with different last names, right? And it's got nothing to do with you. But it's a moot point. Rod Power is the city councillor for Ward 7 and 8. So let's see what.
Yeah, and we wish them all the best.
By the way, before we go back. Now, Carla Bailey, she ran for school trustee in 7 and 8, and she won. Carla Bailey is a Brampton Focus alumni, so good on Carla. We know Carla. She works hard, and she's a mother of 2, and she's a child or an educator as well. So good for her to be the school trustee in Ward 7 and 8.
Right, and she joins Kathy McDonald and I think David Green, who represent the Black community. So in terms of representation, I think in the school boards, we've got good representation from the Black community, but not at council. So yes, congratulations, Carla. We have high expectations of you.
4 years from now.
And then finally, wards 9 and 10, which, I heard during the campaign, there's Brampton and then there's wards 9 and 10, because wards 9 and 10 is so different from Brampton in terms of a lot of things, including the politics. So as we know, Councillor Gurpreet Dillon, who was found by the Integrity Commissioner to have sexually harassed a local resident, my number one goal for the election was to make sure he didn't return. And luckily he did not, right? So who do we have?
No, he lost out by, I think it was just over 200 votes. So, thank God, someone like that should not be on council. The IC basically had said if it was up to her, he would not be on council. And right now he is not on council. So thank God for that. Gert Taptor, we know about him because he served with Linda Jeffrey when she was mayor. And, he's a good guy. I like him.
And I think I saw some rumors online that he's only 29 years old. I'm not sure if that's the case, but if he is, I'm sure that's in Brampton anyways. That's got to be some kind of record for the youngest councillor. He's actually a regional councillor, right? So he's representing both the wards at the city and the regional level.
Yeah, and good for him. Like I said, he ran a campaign. He won by 200 and something votes, and yeah, good for him. I like him.
Yeah.
And of course, Harkarat Singh, he's back as well, so good for him.
Yeah, he needs to update that picture because he looks a lot younger than he looks today after 4 years of being on council.
Well, it's probably 4 years of dealing with the sick, so yeah, it could,
Okay, now what's next, Don?
Give anybody white hair.
Your
Oh, the clown show. Yeah. Well, if you hire, what's the saying? You hire a clown to do your thing, you're going to get a circus, right? So
yeah. So let's start by showing a couple tweets. Yeah. Let's get this banner off of here. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, he was going after you a little bit because you were engaging with him. I just blocked him.
Yeah. So on election day, would you expect the campaign manager to be engaging with me for 6 hours? He left this tweet up on his campaign page on election day for 6 hours. Basically, I was calling him out saying the only reason he was here is to collect his fee. And he's saying, no, it's because Patrick Brown is the worst elected politician in Canada, right? But let me show you what I was responding to. This was his tweet the night before. Basically, he's talking about fundraising, right? And every tweet he sends out is a link to fundraising. And, their goal was to raise $390,000. I thought the goal was to get your candidate elected.
Yeah,
I'm probably taking that out of context, but
yeah, we all know that. Yeah, we all know that wasn't the goal because when we heard that Nikki Carr was the candidate that Nick and Marcel Weeder were promoting, we both shook our heads and said, "Are you kidding? This is the best you got?" We couldn't understand what does Nikki Carr bring to the table, right? It's like she worked on the Brampton U file. She cost taxpayers over $1 million in false allegations. When they asked for a phone, it was suddenly, I dropped it in the water and there was no data onto it. She runs a firm down the road as well as working for the city of Brampton. And I'm like, this is the best candidate. And then before they said, you and I, saw the tweet, Nick Cavalis and Marcel Weeder from Aurora Strategy. We're bringing the best team, the best social media team to Brampton to basically destroy Patrick Brown. And we looked at each other and we're like, really? These guys? And from what we saw with the campaign, it was a clown show. And these are professionals that people hire to run their campaign. And we're like, man, we could do this with our hands tied behind our backs.
Well, I was particularly excited when they said they have the best social media team in Canada because I love the opportunity to learn.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And, I was ready to create some videos with Nikki Carr in it showing all the nonsense she got up to while she was on council because there's some video.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I didn't even have to do that because the videos we saw coming out of that campaign were so bad and so negative. It's like nobody could believe that. Although knowing that people actually believe that video I showed saying it was Brampton's fireworks and people believe that, I can maybe understand why negative videos maybe have some usefulness.
Yeah.
But I think in Brampton, we don't have a major TV station, a major radio station where you can just put negative media out there and get any kind of traction. You've got to do a lot of work to get any kind of content out, right?
Yeah, and let's face it. There's some media just goes along with it for a ride, and they don't even question. They don't say, "Well, what are you talking about? This is ridiculous." So, like going into polling in Toronto is a prime example because I heard one host on a radio station say, "Well, Patrick, he says he's 50 points ahead, but I heard that Nick Cavalis had a poll, and it was like, I think it was 42 and 42 and tied." And I'm thinking, if you believe that, like you're an idiot. Right? It's like we knew from a long time Patrick was running a campaign. Nikki Carr, I'm like, this is the best candidate you got. And it was like, there's no way. There's no way. This is the end result, 60-26. And actually, when we were talking before, I said Patrick is going to get at least 60 and she'll maybe get 15 or something like that. But, 26, don't forget we had a 25% turnout. It was low turnout again. Why that was, we'll cover going forward because that's something that has to be talked about. But yeah,
the thing that bothered me about what happened here is the poll that came out from the Carr campaign was run by the campaign manager because he's got a company called Campaign Research.
Yeah, of course.
Somehow his poll is showing his candidate in the lead a couple days before the actual election.
Yeah,
right?
and
You're
CTV were
manipulating.
covering it, saying, CTV were covering it, saying, "Oh well, Patrick, like we have this poll," and I'm like, you might want to do some background check and actually see who's running the poll at the same time, maybe, right?
Yeah, I was shocked at how lazy Toronto media is in covering this stuff. You just issue a press release, make it kind of look official, and they take it as fact. It was unbelievable to me.
Well, they came out and they were grilling Patrick, and they said something about there's another allegation. Why so many allegations against you and blah blah blah, and it seems to follow you. And he said, yeah, there's a lot, but he said there's a lot of people to backpedal, or there's a lot of clearing of my name as a result of that, right? So you can make an accusation, but if it's cleared, it's like, okay, I don't get what you're asking here. Who's doing the allegations in this? One thing I learned from Nick Cavalis and Marcel Weeder is how not to run a campaign. That campaign was a dirty trick campaign. Marcel Weeder, there's a Star article written about him years ago calling him the dirty tricks man. Nick Cavalis, I know that he was involved in the Conservatives, and I think when Patrick was running, he didn't want Nick to run his campaign. But just the way they ran the campaign with negative, there was a whole bunch of different things. Rowena Santos, this was circulated in her ward, and it was put out there, and it was, talking about all sorts of things. She needs to go, blah, 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 blah. Different articles from different blogs that, we know and hate in Brampton that basically is blog garbage. And then it's approved by the residents of Brampton. Well, we all know who put this out. And if you don't have the balls or the guts to actually put your name on the bottom of some garbage like this, then to me, I've lost all respect for these people on a regular basis. But now that just seals the deal, right? Trolls are trolls. If you can't put your name on something, like, come on, really?
Well, there's also a third party that spent $85,000 on Facebook running negative ads against Councillor Santos. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of these financials, and especially the car campaign. How much I don't know if we actually get to see that detail, but I'd love to know how much the campaign managers got from that campaign.
Here's the thing. But you can hire anybody and do what you want, and put out your social media. But running a negative campaign, in my mind, nobody likes to see that, because in these day and age, you get that Trump thing where it's like, who wants to hear that? I want to hear what you're going to do to improve the city. I don't want to hear that, all the accusations were against Patrick. Patrick did this. Patrick, blah, 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 blah. There was nothing like, what is your candidate doing? And even at the debate that was there, Nikki Carter was saying, when we get in, we're going to do this. When we get in, I'm thinking, who is we? Yeah. Like, what do you got? A whole gaggle of people that are basically behind you?
It's the people who wrote what she had to say.
Exactly. It's like, when I get in, I'm going to do this, not we. And this is the best candidate that these professionals have. So to me, it was a joke, and it was something that, if you're running out there, there's a few candidates that actually ran negative campaigns in the wards, and they didn't get elected, and nobody likes to hear that. It's like, I want to hear what you're going to do.
Okay, Don, next time I'm going to have a buzzer, because I'm going to buzz you, because we're way over time and we have one more segment to do. And this is about the media bias against Brampton. So I want to pull up a slide here and show you the two headlines that came out of the blog. We call it the blog. You might actually want to name it this time.
Nah, screw them.
But, when Patrick won and when Bonnie won in Mississauga, the same blog came out, and look at the headlines. One says Patrick Brown reelected as mayor with less than 25% of votes cast, right? So they're really knocking the mayor as he wins and knocking Brampton. It's like, oh, you had such a low turnout. On the other side, Mayor Bronny reelected overwhelmingly majority, and Ron Starr easily defeated by Joe Hornick, right? So it's like Mississauga's made the right decision. They overwhelmingly voted for Bonnie and got Ron Starr kicked out. Well, guess what? Mississauga had a 20% lower voter turnout than Brampton, but somehow they got to pick on us.
Well, that's the thing. And it seems that, the Nick Cavalis, Marcel Weeder, the blog, all these people, Lane Moore, instead of working to help build up the city of Brampton, they seem to take enjoyment in trying to break it down. And that's negative yellow journalism that, has no place. To me, it's a joke, right? It's these people are not a positive. I like to be around positive people, and hey, what can we do and how can we make it better? Not to tear it down. To me, that's, it's just people are getting tired of that. Maybe that's one of the reasons why there was a low voter turnout, right? But to me, it's just like nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah. Okay, Don. So we're way over time. I think we've got some plans for next week already, right?
Next week, yes, we are going to be doing an interview with the mayor talking about the priorities that he had 4 years ago, plus the future priorities. So we're going to do an interview with the mayor. We'll talk about what he says in regards to that and going forward. We have a couple
if
things.
there's any questions you want us to ask the mayor, because it won't be live on this, we want to have.
No, we're going to tape it. So if there's any questions, you can always email me, don@citystudio.ca or fazell@citystudio.ca.
Don't email me. Email Don. Stuff get lost in my inbox.
All right, email me and we'll try and ask the mayor those questions if there's anything specific.
I don't know who this Facebook user is, but they're clearly wrong if they're agreeing with Don.
Well, I got a thing for you. When we went back to 7 and 8, we talked about Mike Dancy. He ran against Pat Fortini, didn't win. But the one thing with Mike Dancy was he was straight up. He did some videos and stuff like that, and he didn't buy any signs. He didn't spend a lot of money.
Well, votes per dollar spent was way better than
maximized because he didn't spend any money. He didn't have any money, but he didn't spend it.
Mike, I think you did better than I thought you would. So I don't know if I should say congratulations or my expectations were really low, but congratulations on running a campaign for the right reasons.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's a lot of candidates that ran for the wrong reasons, and we know those candidates. But at the same time, it's hard to maintain. Mike was a man team. Yeah. You forgot the dog. The dog was actually part of that team.
Yes, the dog was in every video.
The dog might have gotten more votes than him ringing the buzzer.
Good point, Don.
Yeah. So going forward, I mean, it's very hard to be engaged for the next 4 years. So if anyone who ran in this election wants to be engaged, you got to be engaged for 4 years.
Yeah, join our team. Do your own live stream. Start a project.
Yeah,
there's so much you could be involved in. Yep. You know what, doing it and having your kids see it, Mike, I don't think it's kind of like showing up at your school council meeting. When your kids seeing you do that, I think they take things seriously. And who knows if you run again, or if, you might have inspired your kids to get more involved too. So congratulations.
Well, there you go. All right. So that's it for Tuesday, November the 1st, already November. How many more days till Christmas, Faz?
I don't celebrate Christmas, Don. So, but I'm looking forward to it. For presents, your present to me.
It's a day off. Yeah, I'll get you something nice and frilly. Okay. Well, we'll see you next Tuesday at 6:30, and have a good night.